All right. Actually, if this is your first time doing this, we rise, stand facing the east, standing up straight, heels together in a V formation at a 45-degree angle, holding our arms up perpendicular, two fingers on the right and five on the left. And repeat after me. Allah,
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 Father of the universe,
Father of the
God of the
universe,
universe,
Father of love,
Father of
God of
love,
love,
truth,
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 peace,
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 freedom,
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 and justice.
and
and
justice.
and
justice.
justice.
Allah is my protector,
Lives
Allah
of
is my
God is my
protector,
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 my guide,
my
my
guide,
guide,
and my salvation
and my
and my
salvation,
salvation,
by night and by day
by
by
night
night and
by
by
night and
day,
by day,
through his holy prophet,
through his
through
holy
his
through
holy
his
prophet,
holy
prophet,
prophet,
Drew Ali.
through Ali.
through Ali.
Amen.
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 Islamism. I want to announce that this meeting of the Moorish Science Temple of America is now open. First and foremost, we always rise and give the highest praise to the Most High, the creator of the universe, our Father God Allah. We also give honors to our divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, for bringing us our divine creed and nationality so that we may learn to love instead of hate. We give honors to the forerunner to the prophet, our brother Marcus Mosiah Garvey, for preparing the way for purity and love. We give honors to all the eight-up sheiks and all the faithful Moors that make up the grand body of the Moorish divine and national movement. We also give honors to the first appointed Supreme Grand Sheikh by the Prophet, and as our brother E. Mili Il. We give honors to the current Supreme Grand Sheikh, our brother K. Dandrigel. We give honors to the Grand Council of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and honors to all the faithful Muslims on this call. Islam, Islam, Islamism. Now, Brother Jackson Bey, would you please read the Divine Constitution and Bylaws?
Islam Sheikh, I rise giving perfect praise to Allah, honors to the Prophet, Drew Ali, honors to my forefathers and my foremothers, honors to the Asiatic nations and the Moslems all over the world. Salvation, Allah, unity, the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Divine Constitution and Bylaws. Pardon me, I just ran up the stairs. Act 1, the Grand Sheikh and the chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce law with the assistance of the Prophet and the grand body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 2, all means are to be open and closed promptly, according to Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest, because on a Friday, the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday, the first man departed out of flesh, and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No member is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all. His brother or sister because Allah is love. Act 4, all members must preserve these holy and divine laws. All members must obey the laws of the government, because by being a American, you are part and partial of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5, this organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6, with us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and partial of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, Black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites, whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 6, all members must promptly attend their meetings and become part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful, husband, You must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his father God Allah. Noble Drew Ali, founder of Moorish American Prayer, Allah, the universe, the father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day. Through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. The Moorish Science Temple of America, home office of Noble Drew Ali, home office, Chicago, Illinois, USA. Islam, Islam, Islamism. Happy Sunday, Muslims.
All right, gratitude, more Islamism. All right, I want to thank all you Moors for joining us on this call today. Today, we'll be discussing questions 31 through 40 in our Quran questionnaire. Hang on for 1 second. Before we get started, I asked the person on the call, the guest that says Howard X. Robinson, would you please state where you're calling from?
Yes, sir. This brother Howard X. Robinson from Indianapolis, Indiana.
All right. Okay. Thanks for calling us. Would you please share your email or phone number in the chat with us?
Yes, sir. Just a minute. I have to get down there to it. All righty.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Take your time.
Okay. Let's see. Chat. Got it.
Brother Howard is my guest. I'm thankful for Brother Howard joining us. This is Brother Jabbar. You know, Jesus said that we should be fishers of men, and that's how I was trained and taught. So in this instance, you know, Brother Howard is my fish, but thankful to be on with you, brother. 31 through 40.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you both for joining. Brother Cole Bay, would you please read the Prophet's risk for us?
Islam, I rise and give honors to the great God Allah. I rise and give honors to our Prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I rise and give honors to our forerunner, Moroccan Messiah Garvey. I rise and give honors to all Moors on attendance and all Moors on the planet. Prophet warns all Muslims to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members they must end all radical speeches while at work, in their homes, and on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans that causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who malicious villains towards the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their tarred button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found it. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali, and the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans to do their part in protecting the prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace, Noble Drew Ali. Be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There's a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claimed that I was a joke and unreal. But now, since they found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can so they may disqualify me so they can take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that pay their divine respects to me and the movement will be remembered. That's why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finances so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet, Noble Drew Ali. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam. This is instructions from your prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefather divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is on now, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of times are drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Drew Ali. And that's why many hearts have turned to stone. Many have eyes to see, but cannot see, ears to hear, but cannot hear, lest they'll be confounded of their sins. These are the trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Islam, Islam, Islamism.
Islamism and gratitude, brother. All right. Before we discuss the questionnaire, I just wanted to speak briefly about our laws within the Moorish Science Temple of America. We go over this from time to time. It's important that we understand this. I do want to thank the brother Howard X. Robinson. Thank you. Received your email. Appreciate that. Gratitude. All right. Okay, so if you are looking in your Quran right now, if you would turn to page 51. Actually, we're in chapter 41 real quick. If you would turn to page 51, chapter 41, I'm going to read this out loud. Verse 13. All right, this chapter is holy instructions from the prophet in constancy. Verse 13 says, how should his actions be right who hath no rule of his life? Nothing can be just which proceedeth not from reason. So what this is letting us know is when Noble Drew Ali put this movement in place, the Moorish Divine and National Movement, he established rules, right? First and foremost, we have to be able to rule over ourselves. We know that something that we tarry with on a daily basis is with the subduing of the lower self, right? But he put laws in place for all of the members to follow. And the first type of law would just basically be called a rule. We have rules, regulations, and principles. Okay, so the founder, Noble Drew Ali, put rules in place that must be observed by all members. They must be observed by all members. And then the second type of law was the regulation. So the prophet exercised his authority and he put regulations in place to deal with the details and the procedures of the everyday operation of the movement. And then the third type of law would be the principle. And the principles are the fundamental type of laws that control our conduct. Right? So just one example of the principles. Well, a principle would be our 5 divine principles, right? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It's supposed to control our everyday conduct. Everything that we do should fall within the bounds of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Okay, so when you look at it in that light now, you can understand why the prophet said we have to proclaim and practice our 5 great principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Also, why it's not good enough just to know this information. You have to understand our principles, what we stand on, our laws, because this is what guarantees our success. This is what brings us into our divine covenant with the creator of the universe. This guarantees your success. We don't need anyone to come and do this for us. We can do this ourselves, right? We have to adhere to the 5 divine principles 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the month, every day of the year. Okay. And it's on us. Basically, it's all put back on us. As a collective, as members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, we understand, we have a unique understanding that many of our people don't, because one of the things that happens with us as a collective, because of slavery, first off, the badge of slavery is put on us as if that's where we originated from, right? We're called the descendants of slaves instead of the descendants of Africans, right? We're the descendants of slaves. And so they put that badge on us. They start us as slavery, and we're put in victim mode, right? They're always making slavery films, still in 2021, making slavery films, slavery shows. But we know as members of the Moorish Science Temple of America that it's us who allowed the Roman nations to take our nationality away from us. And then due to our own ignorance of our nationality, of what it means to be us, to follow our own ways instead of theirs, right? That it took a divine prophet to get us right, to get it back to us. And that ensures our success. So we suffer for our own doing, ultimately. Okay? But we are what our forefathers were. We're the same thing today without doubt or contradiction. No one can change us from our descendant nature, right? Unless their powers extend beyond the great universal creator Allah. So the Roman nations can only act as gods and dominate us if we allow it. So the first step, of course, would be to make that exodus, to step outside of this system, right? They civilized you. They gave you a religion. They gave you a Christian name, right? We can't in 2021 keep this going. Excuse me. We can't keep this going. We can't keep continuing that cycle. We have to come out of it. We have to come into our own. And coming into our own doesn't necessarily mean we have to go off to some foreign land if we don't have any ties to the land, don't even really have any ties to the people there, where they would see us as colonizers if we were coming. That's actually what happened with the country of Liberia in Africa. Many of the people there from America, the Asiatic people who went there, they were colonizers on behalf of the people of European descent, and the Americans. They had vested interest there. And what they wound up doing in Liberia, without getting too far off the subject, they wound up setting up an aristocracy there, where the ruling class, for the most part, they would have English names. They would have names like us. Well, like most of us here. And that would be the ruling class there. It's like a boule type of aristocracy set up there, right? So basically they're colonizers, you know? And we don't have to do that. This is our land right here. We're right at home. We just have to come into our own society, our own way of thinking, our own laws, our own religion, our own customs. Everything that we see is crumbling around us, and it should be obvious to all of us, everybody that's here, that we have to come out of this. So moving on, our prophet gave us something that will prevent another nation from dominating over us, from doing this again, and that's called free national standards. And the free national standard is something established by the use of authority for a nation that is not subject to influence, hindrance, control, or domination by another nation. So that means even the message that I'm speaking, even though part of this, is coming from my perspective, but I'm speaking on the teachings that we have within our nation. And it's free from hindrance. It's free from influence, from outside influence, right? We have laws. There's certain things that can't be changed, regardless of what people think. without getting too controversial, I'll just say one thing. Within our Quran, we have marriage instructions for man and woman. Nobody can come and flip that and change that. I don't care how much pressure people are trying to put on us, not changing it. These are divine instructions. Inside of our Quran, if you have a physical copy, you can see the top of each page. On one side, it says the divine instructions, and the other side says from the Holy Prophet. So the entire Quran, this is all law. All of these are laws, but these are divine instructions, right? So we're not changing that. And it doesn't matter what type of influence, like you might hear about that. The West puts pressure on different African nations. They put pressure on Jamaica and other countries to be more open to alternative lifestyles and marriage and stuff like that. And yeah, you know, they can't do that to us. They can't. All right. So and I just threw that out there as an example. Of course, we don't preach hate. We don't teach hate. That's not even our demo at all. We don't teach hate. But at the same time, we have our own free national standard. And it's free from domination or influence or control or hindrance from anyone else. And this is one thing that we're missing too, because of course, as Black people, as African Americans, as Negroes, as colored folks, as niggers, as whatever they wanted to call us, right? What are they calling us now? African Americans. So as African Americans, what do we have that's really our own? The majority of our people are Christian, right? And we're not practicing Christian as the Coptic Egyptians or the Ethiopians. No, we're practicing it from a European perspective. And it's not free from hindrance, control, or domination by another nation, by another people. They give us what they feel like we should have, what is safe for us to have, right? How come most Christians don't even know that Jesus is teaching in the Bible, in the very Bible, the holy book, that they are all God's, or that they are all God's children? Same thing. Both of these phrases are mentioned and not even out of context, right? Why do they feel like he's the only son of God? Why did they put him on the pedestal when he taught the exact opposite, if you really look at his message? And that's why we have the keys, the hidden keys in our Quran, the hidden lessons from Jesus that were held back. It's a continuing of the message, and it's a condensed form of the message, but that same message is in the Bible, right? He lets you know that everything that he's done, you shall do, and even greater things. Okay, but most, I won't say all, but most of the Christian leaders, preachers aren't giving this information out. Okay, and so we don't need that. We need our own. We need to come into our own. Some of our free national standards that the Prophet gave us so that we can maintain our nationhood are: 1, our Supreme Grand Council; 2, our ADEP chamber; 3, our Moorish Sunday school; our public meetings; 5, our Holy Quran; 6, our divine constitution and bylaws; and 7, our holy questionnaire. That's just one, but you could also say our holy day on Friday. You could keep going. There's several other things that are our free national standards. They're things that we hold to, things that we do that are free from influence of anyone else. Okay.
Would you remind repeating that list, brother?
Oh, no problem. Well, these are just a few things, but our Supreme Grand Council and our ADEP chamber, Supreme Grand Council, ADEP chamber, our Moorish Sunday school, our public meetings, our Holy Quran, our divine constitution and bylaws, and our holy questionnaire. But these are just some of the free national standards that the Prophet gave us so that we can use them to maintain our nationhood.
Thank you.
Right, but we also have some others. I mean, just our national headdress, the fez, the turban. We have several. Those are just a few. All right. Okay, and we have these common bonds that tie us together, common origin, tradition, language, right? We are capable of forming or actually constituting a nation state. Anyone that has these qualities they have a nationality. It exists. And even if they're in a land that they don't have possession of, right? We inhabit this land. We live here. We dwell here, but we don't necessarily have possession of it. We're not in control of it. But we still have a nationality, and that can't be denied to us. Nobody can come against that. That's why we're able to do what we're doing without it being considered treasonous. They cannot, no one can stop this, right? Unless their powers extend beyond the creator of the universe. And then nationality is a people having a common origin, tradition, and language, and are capable of forming or actually constituting a nation state. Okay, and everyone needs this. We need it because it ties us to our forefathers. This is something that we were cut off from. They start the Negro at slavery. Literally, they literally start our ancestors off at slavery, and they labeled them Negroes. You know what? Don't want to get too far off track, but I'm gonna share something. Just show you an example of this occurring in real time. Well, on the record. It was recorded in history of them slapping this label on us. And so you can see kind of why they did this, how it benefited them. Hang on a second. And who did it? Because we say they, but we can put a face to it. We can put a name to it. So hang on, let me get this for you. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay. So up here on the screen, this is a handbook from Jack D. Forbes. He basically created the Native American Studies program at UC Berkeley, right? So he's the expert on everything dealing with Native American history and lineage. This handbook that he wrote for teachers, it said Afro-Americans in the Far West, use of the terms Negro and Black, and even more to include persons of Native American ancestry in Anglo-North America. There's one thing, one specific thing that I wanted to read, just so that you know, have an idea of what I'm talking about, right? When they're placing this label on us, right? We have a clear-cut example. All right, so we have an example from the West Indies, 1764. This is all on the record. Everything that Forbes put, he has detailed sources on all of this information. So none of this is just conjecture. In 1764, William Young was sent to St. Vincent, right? This is in the West Indies as part of the British occupation of that land. Living on St. Vincent were about 3,000 what they call Black Caribs or free Negroes, about 100 red Caribs or Indians, and some 4,000 French and their slaves, according to Young. Look at this again, though. 3,000 in this island, 3,000 Black Caribs or free Negroes, and 100 red Caribs, and then some 4,000 French and their slaves. The British found it difficult to control the Caribs, and wars were fought with them in 1771 through 1772, and again during 1795 and 1796. During the latter crisis, Young wrote an extremely anti-Carib tract designed to prove that the Caribs should be removed from St. Vincent. They were eventually defeated, and some 5,000 were shipped to an island near the coast of Honduras. Now, when they arrived at that coast, they would have arrived on ships and they would have been branded as Negroes. Negroes from Africa, even though they were Black Caribs. So look at the demographics. The majority of the people, 3,000 Black Caribs. The majority of the Indians, so-called Indians there, 100 Red Caribs, 3,000 to 100, right? Who do you think were the majority? Who do you think were the indigenous people, All right, and then some 4,000 French and their slaves. This is what comprises the island at the time, all right? So when this William Young guy gets there, it says he was anxious to prove that the so-called Black Caribs were not true Aborigines, but were in fact Negro colonists. Why is he so anxious to prove that? Because he's trying to usurp their land. He has to get them away from their indigenous ties to the land. So Young, and I credit Jack D. Force for putting this out, because he put the truth out. He couldn't come out and say it like in the same manner that we can, but he put it out there, and he just put it out there so you could figure it out. Here, you read between the lines. But he's saying it without saying it. Young was anxious to prove that the so-called Black Caribs were not true Aborigines, but were in fact Negro colonists. What does that mean? Free Negroes or Negro usurpers. They were just pretending to be Black Caribs. They were just pretending to be the indigenous people, the Caribs. This was important to him because he wanted to show that they had no bona fide land rights or Aboriginal title. For our purposes, the interesting point admitted by Young is that the so-called Blacks or Negroes were occasionally of tawny or mixed complexion because of American ancestry, and that their customs, personal names, and language were those of the native Caribs. Still further, Young admitted that they had repeatedly intermarried with American women. He consistently refers to them as Negroes nonetheless. So even by his own admitting of their customs, their names and language, everything that they're doing, they're the indigenous people, but he's still calling them Negroes because Negro wasn't just a nickname. It carried legal ramifications with it, because they defined the Negro, and they began this process a long time ago and perfected it in the 1700s. So the Negro is just somebody from somewhere in West Africa. I mean, West Africa is probably the size of the continental United States. How can you say that? That's not a people. That's not a tribe. That gives you nothing. That's just, oh, you're from the United States, right? Texas is not the same as California. Ohio is not, I grew up in Memphis, but I'm from Ohio. They were not the same. It was a huge culture shock for me as a young boy moving to Memphis, Tennessee, right? The way that we talk down there in the South, it wasn't. So anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because, you can't just say, oh, they're from West Africa, but that's what they did. The Negroes just something from West Africa. And it's not even a tribe. It's not a nation. It's not an empire. It's a slave. It's a permanent slave. And so this is why he was so anxious to brand them as Negroes. All right. And then just last thing, Young also relayed a great deal of hearsay information about how the Black Caribs had originated. So he's just making up an origin for them. A great deal of hearsay about how they originated. And it's without foundation for analysis here. The important point is this, that a people thoroughly American in identity, culture, and language were called Black and Negro solely because of being mixed with African ancestry. Like what? That's not how it works. I mean, there's a lot of people claiming to be Native American now who are what they would have called paleface back in the day, right? This tendency continues incidentally among white scholars even today, refuse to accept the Caribs' avowed feelings of Indianness. And this is why also you'll see the people in the West Indies, from Jamaica to Haiti to all the way down to Barbados and Trinidad. What do? Every year around this time, they have carnival. And they're dressed like Indians, right? And some of the fake, I guess, I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but you have some people who have like this fake outrage at them for dressing like Indians. They're the real Indians. They're the real Caribs. They're the real Arawaks. They're the real indigenous people. And that's why they're the only ones keeping those traditions going, even in this day. Right? But this is what Negro, this is just one example of what Negro meant. It was the term Negro is confined to slave Africans and their descendants. And it doesn't embrace the free inhabitants of Africa. It starts and ends at slavery. Okay, and so it's a big deal. It goes over a lot of our people's heads, and that's unfortunate. You know, it's unfortunate that some people still don't care. They don't think it matters, and it does, because they proceeded after they made the Negro Acts to make Negro laws, Black codes, Black Christian codes, to first to define the Negro and then to keep you confined there, to keep control over those people, right? Their creation. So we had to step outside of that. Extremely important. So yes, nationality is very important. As Moorish Americans, we have a nationality that ties us to our forefathers. There's concrete physical evidence showing that the ancient Moabites were here, not just here where I'm at in Ohio, but on the East Coast, on the West Coast, the Midwest, in Central and South America, the islands, all of this. It's not a coincidence that the last Moorish stronghold in Spain, Al-Andalus, Granada, fell in 1491. Columbus comes over here the next year, 1492. That's not a coincidence. And then 1493, the papal bull is put out by the Pope, deeming us all savages, giving them the right to come and conquer our lands and to Christianize us, right? These things didn't just happen by coincidence. So this was a part of our empire. As the prophet let us know, he returned this hidden information to us. He returned it to us. And so this ties us to our forefathers without us having to ask anybody for permission. We don't have to go and not knocking or disparaging. I'm sorry, brother Simon Bey, I see Islam.
Islam Sheikh. I just had it's a two-part question. First of all, could you give us the year again for when the Pope had that papal bull? And there were 2 years that I really should have committed to memory. But could you go over the documentation that defined us, like 1774, when our nationality was stripped, and then 1779, when we were defined as slaves and Negroes?
All right, Islam. Okay, so yeah, the papal bull, 1493. Granada was the last Moorish stronghold, the last Moorish city that basically King Boabdil had signed it over to his cousins, who were basically the ruling class in Spain, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, right? Like his watered down cousins. They were of Moorish descent. And then they proceeded to break up the empire and sell it off. They're selling it off to England and France. They're making deals. Okay.
Islam.
And then Islam, then about the dates, okay, in our divine constitution and bylaws in Act 6, right? The names that were given to us, Negro, Black, colored, and Ethiopian, were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779. And then lasted to 1865 during the time of slavery. right? And a theory, I guess you could say, behind that would be that you had meetings. You had meetings in Independence Hall in Philadelphia with the founders, the framers of the Constitution, and the Europeans were trying to figure out what to do with us. You know, what are they going to do? How are they going to pull this off? And they were having a series of meetings. You had the Articles of Confederation that are being written, the Continental Congress. And during this period, they're trying to perfect this process that they wound up pulling off. So that's why you have those two dates mentioned by the prophet, we're starting in 1774, and then they pretty much, I guess you could say, almost they perfected it, 1779, and rolled it out big time. And then as we go looking throughout history, we can have a better understanding of what's going on. Like the thing that I was just reading about the guy Young, he was an operative. He's a British soldier, and they're like, okay, you need to go in there and help take over this situation. We're having trouble in St. Vincent. So he goes in there and he starts branding the Caribs as Negroes, even though they're the only ones keeping the language. They're the only ones eating the food. They're the only ones with indigenous names. You know, for all we know, these so-called ghetto names that some of us are embarrassed to have now, right? Some of us embarrassed. For all we know, these ghetto names are indigenous names. I remember seeing a role, like an Indian role, so-called Indian, where they're showing the names, and some of the names are like Shaniqua and stuff like this. Okay? And so even like unconsciously, we're keeping this stuff going. But that's why you had those two dates. Name some of the marks put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774. Okay? So it was a process. You know, everything doesn't happen overnight. But yeah, by 1779, this stuff is already on the books in several states. Everyone's agreeing upon it. They're agreeing to go by this, even in other areas, right? Other nations throughout the Americas. This is what we're gonna do. So yeah, it doesn't matter what we call ourselves now, Black, African American, it all denotes to Negro, because we didn't create any of it. Just because they get someone that looks like us to promote it or to act like it's okay to go by it, doesn't mean anything. Islam, I see the brother Jackson Bay had your hand up.
Islam Sheik, I was just gonna say, to speak knowledge, speak light to what you were saying about the Granada. I just literally, it's this person I follow on on your podcast app, and it's the golden age of Islam, and they just dropped the fall of Granada. So yeah, I got to hear how Queen Isabella and Ferdinand was just using Bo Abdul, and Bo Abdul, he was playing, like, basically he tried to switch sides at the end back to the more, it was just like he was just a switch side. He was a real live dirty boy. So just when I heard that, when I heard the podcast, because the dude, he just kind of goes over like historical facts of different time periods. Like that's where I learned about the one of the sources I learned about the Almoravid and the Almohad dynasties, and certain just Islamic knowledge and history and stuff like that. So Islam, I was just going like, yeah, it was that whole time period of when he sold it wasn't selling it under like, he was selling it trying to get more power, I believe, than the king of Morocco or the other kingdoms. You feel me? So he wasn't doing it in honor, or it wasn't like, you feel me? It was just real. He was a real live dirty Moor that did Islam.
Islam, yeah, it's like he was incompetent. He actually came into power. It was like an orchestrated thing for him to come into power, because they knew his weakness, that he wasn't going to be able to hold it down. And You know, they gave him, he got paid in, man, I can't remember the name of the currency, but basically, you know, he got a backdoor deal to sell us out. And he wasn't
Yep.
just selling off Spain, because Spain at that time, even though it was falling, that was still the seat of power for the Moorish Empire. So he was selling off this land over here, right? And other places as well.
Islam, Sheik, and to add just the last thing, Queen Isabella and Ferdinand promised him to be a duke, right? So he was following the ways of the European, like Drew Ali said. He was literally following the ways of his tawny cousins, and this is the predicament we again following, you know, because they were straight holy Roman Catholics and stuff. So you know,
Islam, and then it wasn't just one person. You know, there were a lot of people that sold out and did things like this that got us in the position that we're in today. All right. And you know, so it's not a coincidence, right, that this last Moorish stronghold fell and turned things over to the European powers that were up and coming in 1491, and then 1492, the very next year, Columbus comes over here. All of a sudden, they know that the world's not flat. Come on, right? This not a coincidence. All of a sudden, they're getting their hands on the maps, and they're allowed to come into an area where they weren't previously. Okay. And then boom, they have their Christian power, the Pope, their vice regent of God on earth, put out the edicts that allow them to go conquering these people, these savages that they're calling Saracens, which is Moors, to go out and conquer them and to bring them into Christianity, right? So yeah, that's not a coincidence. All of these things are happening, and you know, once you come into this light, you have to do something about it, right? So nationality is what enables us to claim our birthrights, right? This land, all of this is ours. And then also, by claiming your nationality, that puts us in compliance with the constitutional standard of law by name. Okay, that's why you could say, oh, we needed the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments to come in to the fold. That really wasn't for us, because at the time, once the Confederacy lost the Civil War, right, they have to come in, they have to announce their loyalty to the United States government, right? They're getting provisions protecting them, their rights to vote, protecting their right to their property and things, that they're not going to be tortured, that they get to keep all of the, you know, their homes, everything except their slaves, right? So they're getting these protections that we didn't have those protections because Negroes couldn't own property. So it wasn't even pertaining to us. All right. So this is actually for them. And then it could be extended to the Negro to bring them into the fold without actually giving them full rights. Because in order to do that, then we have to be allowed to build our own, right? We need our own land. We have to build up and decide which way we want to go for ourselves, for our own destiny, right? So they didn't do that. They didn't do that. They kept that hidden. And so basically we have to come into our own so that we even fall up under the Constitution. We shouldn't have needed civil rights, right? We have human rights. They're guaranteed for all. So nationality determines our political status in this government. We can't leave that out. Claiming nationality puts us in a position where we can now base our lives off of the divine creed of our forefathers and adhere to our 5 divine conduct controlling principles. And that will allow us to become law-abiding citizens. And that will take care of a lot of the ills and the traps that they have set for us, right? Because those traps, a lot of times, it's because we're going off of, I guess you could say, popular opinion, or we're going along with the common society, whatever they're doing, you know, sex and drugs or whatever it is that's going on. We're going along with that. And that, of course, is going to lead to our downfall. we have to come into our own. All right. And on that note, let's go ahead and go into the questionnaire. We're reading 31 through 40. Let's just go through these. If anybody has any questions or any insight, anything that you want to share, feel free to speak up. With question 31, just asking what is the modern name for the Moabites? And then we're given the answer, Moroccans. All right, and then 32, where is the Moroccan Empire? Northwest of Maxim. All right, so the prophet in this 31, he's relinking us, the present and the past. He's letting it be known that the ancient Moabites and the indigenous Moroccans are the same people, one and the same. You are what your forefathers were. Okay. Moabite, excuse me, would in present day be referring to the Moroccans, the descendants of the Moroccans. And then he's also establishing a political unit, right? Our seat of power. The Moroccan Empire was Northwest Africa. And then at the height of their power, that stretched from the western half of Algeria, all throughout Morocco, all the way as far south as Ghana. And then in Europe, it went across the Mediterranean, which actually, if you look at Spain and North Africa, is really close, right through the Straits of Gibraltar. Like all of that stuff is very close. So in Europe, it extended up in through Spain, Portugal. Portugal's tiny, but it even went up into the Pyrenees Mountains in France. And even though this is not well known, it extended across the Atlantic Ocean. Why? Because our ancestors have been over here since before there was an Atlantic Ocean. Okay, and many don't know this, but you had an Islamic empire in the Philippines prior to Spanish colonization. So you even had Moors in the Pacific. All right, so the empire was expansive. What is the modern name for Maxim, Africa? Okay, and spoke on this before, like the name of the prophet is returning an ancient name to us for Africa. I spoke before how that could be referring to Al-Maxim, and Al-Maxim was basically a name for the seat of power, like the ruling class. So it wouldn't have been even just limited to one place. So this could have been insinuating that the ruling class was peopled by our people, Africans. Of course, I could be wrong on that. But the prophet is returning divine insight to us with this name. What is the title given to our ruler in Morocco? Sultan. The present day king of Morocco, his father left behind the title of Sultan, right? He went into exile in Europe, and he went in as the Sultan, but he came back as a king, right? So he abandoned that title. So technically, right now, there is no Sultan. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but there is no Sultan right now. Right.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. The Alawite dynasty, I mean, it seems like he refers to himself as a king.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I was thinking it was his grandfather, but it was his father. His father had actually abandoned that title, right? I don't know why. I mean, I wasn't there, when he came to this agreement. But he was in exile in Europe, and there was basically a fight over power. I think either one of his brothers or cousins was fighting him for the throne. He was in Europe, and when he came back, obviously with the assistance of Europeans to come back to take his seat of power, he came back as a king. Right. So more than likely, he made deals over there, made an alliance maybe, and he came back with some military might to back him, but he didn't come back with that same title as the Sultan. All right. Okay, and then the next question, where do we get the name Jesus from? And the answer is from the East. And then the name Jesus is basically that's the Greek form of the Hebrew name, Yeshua. Yeshua means Jehovah is salvation, or Jehovah saves. Right? Question 36, what does the name Jesus means? And then we're given the answer, Jesus means justice. All right. Does anybody want to build on that? Does anybody have anything they want to ask or add on that? I could say that the Latin word for justice is just Justus, justus. And when you translate that into Hebrew, it's Joshua. And remember, Yeshua, Joshua, the same thing, because in the past, in the Hebrew language, they wouldn't have had the letter J. Right? So, yeah, if you know people with that name, Joshua, they have the name Jesus.
Islam. Also, because like you said, Jesus means Allah saves, or Allah is the salvation. Or Yahweh's salvation. Salvation is the only justice, right? Just looking at it from, on a scientific level. You feel what I'm saying? To add to it.
Islam, that makes sense. So if we're looking at the Hebrew translation of Yeshua, which would have been Jesus' name, and it means, as the brother said, Jehovah is salvation, or Yahweh is salvation. So yeah, salvation, that's justice. It's just simplified, right? Just one way of simplifying, and then that's one of Allah's divine attributes. It's justice, right? That's a principle, it's a virtue, and then that's Allah's nature. Islam.
Yeah, just one way to look at it. What does the name Jesus mean? Jesus means justice. I think about the principle of fair dealing. I think about the scales of balance, and the scales being imbalanced. The injustice that we have received while being here for over this 400 years, and justice coming, or Jesus coming to give justice, to provide justice, to provide fair dealing, so that we have our nationality, we have that information that we need to take our place, in the affairs of men in a just manner. So I guess there's a couple of different ways you can read it, like a translation or a definition, or maybe Jesus means justice, like justice coming, justice being delivered. The reincarnation of Jesus means justice is present. So just another perspective.
Islam, gratitude, and basically that's letting us know the message of Jesus is one of divine justice. Islam, Sister Douglas L, see you.
Islam, praise Allah, honors to his prophet, Noble Drew Ali, honors to all you Moors in attendance. I just want to add to the bill, because if we go back in the keys of 46 to link everything with Jesus and why Jesus is important, is because Jesus said he spoke truth, right? So like the brother said, you know, Jesus means justice, and justice is this is our salvation. So our salvation is coming from the truth, because truth is a lie and truth is art. So the truth don't change. So we always should look to our brother Jesus and use his life works and teachings as an example so that we could follow Islam.
Islam. Islam.
Islam. Also, I just was looking at it, right? The question is 36. 3 plus 6 is 9. 9 is a number of completion. So when Jesus comes, that's completion of the salvation cycle. You know, salvation and life unity. You know what I mean? Just there's so many ways you could build on that. Islam. I just saw that. I was like, oh, 3 plus 6, 9. 9 is completion. Jesus, you know what I mean? Jesus said it was finished. You know, just a whole lot of Islam.
Islam is what I like to hear. You know, the building on multiple levels, because the science is so deep. Like we could do this forever. Islam.
Islam. Gratitude to everybody for sharing. Moving on to the next question. Did the angel give to the child that was called Jesus a holy name? Yes, but it cannot be used by those who are slaves to sin. All right. So what is this saying? Right. Um, okay. So we know that the prophet was an Egyptian adept. All right. And if we're looking at that from an ancient Egyptian perspective, right, we know that there's power in the words, the spoken word. We know our thoughts, our thoughts create and our words create, right? The Egyptians wrote about this in the scrolls. They wrote about this. They carved this in stone. They have tales of using words to actually manipulate physical matter and to manipulate the spiritual nature around them, right? So your words carry weight, all right, and the sound, right? There's even some that say that sound was used to create the pyramids and to heal people, right? But one thing with this, right, when we're looking at that word used, right, we're saying, yes, but it cannot be used by those who are slaves to sin. So use means put into service or action, right? So the power in actually knowing this name that he has, it can't be used by people who are slaves to their lower self, who are not able to subdue their lower self, who are subject to that, right? Because it's just insinuating that it contains tremendous power, right? And it's something that many of us may not even understand or believe, right? You have to see it. Some of us have to see it to believe it. But this is real. I remember listening to this guy named Hakeem El Abdouan. He's an indigenous wisdom keeper from Egypt, and he's supposed to have memorized the history of the whole world for the past 25,000 years, right? Like he's an indigenous Egyptian, and he was speaking about how the pyramids, how they actually had like a chamber in there where the ancient Egyptians used to put people in there and use sound waves to see whatever physical problems the people had, and then they would use that to heal them, right? So they knew how to manipulate sound and how to use it, and they knew that it contained power. And so this is just insinuating that the actual name that he has, that's a secret name that it can't be used by those who are slaves to sin. And it's saying that literally. Now, somebody else may see something else spiritually or something in that, but I'm saying that literally it does have tremendous power, right? And it can't be used by those who aren't even trying to subdue their lower self. Islam, I see your hand raised.
Islam, and to add to that, we do know that the faithful Mars, we have something called Adept Chamber, and that goes to a whole nother level of building on this key itself, Islam.
Islam. All right. Gratitude. And the next question saying, what is an angel? An angel is a thought of Allah manifested in human flesh. The previous question saying, did the angel give to the child that was called Jesus a holy name? So um like we're not trying to look at this in a dogmatic way, right? We're more scientists. What is an angel? It's a thought of Allah manifested in human flesh. That's the same thing that the prophet is. I see a hand raised, Islam. Oh, the sister Douglas L. and then brother Jackson Bay.
Praise Allah. I just want to say if we go to key 61, we can then identify who those angels are, because angels are the Asiatics and we are Asiatics. We are Asiatics. So the prophet gave us this divine wisdom to let us know that we are part of something greater. Islam.
Islam. Right, brother Jackson Bay. Gratitude, sister.
Islam, I wanted to say something about 37, which move quick. I just wanted to say, the 37, right? If you was to turn the 3 and the 7 upside down, that says El, so meaning God. So applying that, did the angel give to the child that was called Jesus a holy name? Yes, but it cannot be used by those who slave to sin. So like you were saying, man, you can't be, if you slave to your lower self, you feel me, you're not unfolding an L or God within you. And then you can't utter the name. You feel me? That's what I was gonna say on that. And on 38, you feel me? An angel is a thought of Allah manifested in flesh. Uh, the pineal gland, right? The third eye. You feel me? We was to align it. That would be, you feel what I'm saying? The angel in all of us. You feel what I'm saying? So, and like the sister said, what's the name of the angels? Asiatics. And all of the Muslims, Moors, they're Asiatics. So that is just when you look at these keys, man, they start to unlock things. Islam.
Islam. Gratitude to you both. And speaking on that, the prophet is letting us know. Okay, it says that he in here in the same in these same keys, it says that he's a thought of Allah manifested in the flesh. Angels are thoughts of Allah manifested in the flesh. What's the modern name of these angels? Asiatics. What's the shade of their skin? Olive. Are the Moorish Americans any relation to those angels? Yes. We all have the same father and mother, right? So we're all thoughts of Allah manifested in the flesh. So while we honor the prophet for everything that he did and established for us, we don't worship him. We don't put him up there. Like we all have the capacity to do what he did and even greater things. Okay, just as Jesus said in the Bible about himself, even though that message gets suppressed for some reason, right? They're using it to control and to dominate people, right? Instead of letting them know you're all sons of God. It's not just this one guy right here, right? That's a distortion. That's a gross distortion of the message. From reading our Quran, our Holy Quran, we know that Jesus didn't want that to be done at all. He came to bring this message to everyone and let them all know, everyone, that God is in you all. Allah is in every last one of us, right? And so that message was distorted and used and twisted to keep people down. All right, and to set up a hierarchy or an aristocracy with these people at the top and everyone else at the bottom. But this is the book of the seven seals. It's coming to reveal the truth. And the truth is being revealed to us, the ones who are being overlooked by everyone. Right? Everybody's underestimating us. All right, because eventually we're to be the leaders of all of this. We are to bring these revelations to the world. Okay, and question 39, what are angels used for? To carry messages to the four corners of the world, to all nations. right? That is their sole purpose, is to act as spiritual mediators, all right, to come through to bring this this message to humanity. Okay. And what is our prophet to us? He is an angel of Allah who is sent to bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah. In our Quran, last chapter, verse 1, chapter 48 says, the last prophet in these days is noble Drew Ali, who was divinely prepared divinely in due time by Allah to redeem men from their sinful ways and to warn them of the great wrath which is sure to come upon the earth. All right, Islam. So that's the gospel, the unquestionable truth, the good news and the salvation. All right, and this was brought to us so that we could bring it to the world. That's the everlasting gospel. On that note, we'll go ahead and close this out. If anybody has any questions though about this or anything else, even questions just in general, feel free to ask. I'll go ahead and yield the floor. Islam.
I have a question about the everlasting gospel. I've been throwing that idea around recently, and kind of came to the conclusion that he meant the Circle 7 Quran, as the everlasting gospel. That's supposed to be the conclusion I came to that he was describing. What is the everlasting gospel? Of course, we just talking about Jesus, and in that scripture, he gives the mandate of spreading the gospel, or teaching the gospel, or preaching the gospel. And so, in this context, like I said again, wrestling with it, I came to the conclusion that the gospel is the Circle 7 Quran. Even though he said preach, although he said preach economic security, right?
Islam. Yes, so definitely. I mean, it contains our instructions, our divine instructions on how to enter into our covenant. Makes us aware of our covenant with Allah. Gives us the ultimate truth of how we came into being, our connection to the infinite, to Allah, that Allah is in us, right? And this is powerful. And as it says in the beginning of the Quran, that it contains the lessons that were held back from not just from us, but from the world, until the time was right to be revealed. And that time is now. We're in, as they say, the last days, right? And it's just a new beginning, but it's time. And a lot of times change is going to come from the most unlikely of places. So regardless of how we see ourselves, I think a lot of other people are underestimating us. They're not really looking to us. And that's why it's coming to us. It's coming from us, because it's not who's the most, who's the biggest authority, or who's in power, or who's rich. No, it's not about that, right? We're Allah's people. And that's why Allah's coming to us with this message. And Islam, I agree with you about the Circle 7 Quran. Definitely, this is the everlasting gospel. This contains our saving power, right? And ultimately, it's on us to enact it, because Allah's in us, right? Nobody can come and physically save us. We have the power to do this ourselves. We control our reality. So these keys are being given back to us so that we can demonstrate it in the physical and show how it's done, and then show this to the world. Islam. All right, Islam. So yeah, before we close, I just want to open the floor if anybody has any questions, anything that you want to share, feel free to speak. Okay, if not, I want to announce without further ado, we're going into the closing of the meeting. Brother Seymour Bay, would you please read the divine warning?
Islam, Sheikh. First, I rise and give praise to the Most High, Father God Allah. I give honors to His holy prophet, the noble Drew Ali, and to the forerunner to the prophet, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. Honors to all the members of the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and to all you faithfuls on the call. Islam, a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that delude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to that state of mind, to their forefathers' divine and national principles, that they will be law abiders and receive their divine right as citizens according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government, and not under a granted privilege, as has been the existing condition for many generations. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they're glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make the man. It is the free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone, and without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I'm hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of the government. I'm depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. I love my people, and I desire their unity and mine back to their own free national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government and claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro deludes in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word colored deludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon this earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizen of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and the South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was enforced since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of our people and citizens. So there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people. And this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do herein believe that this administration of the government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn to stop serving carnal customs and merely ideas of man that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which is being committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding, they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. And there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they have fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South, and I have examined the conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into marvelous light. From the prophet, Islam, Islam, Islamism. Peace.
Gratitude, brother. Okay, additional laws for the Moorish Americans by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Act 1, Grand Sheikhs and governors and heads of all temples, all businesses. Each said temple must be approved by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Before acting upon by any members, let it be finance, property, or any line of life that will cause the members to sacrifice finances, etc., that will cause the support of any group of members. Any former officer that violates these laws is subject to be removed from his office under a heavy restriction, etc., by the Prophet or the Grand Sheikh. Act 2, all members are to attend their ADEP meetings and their public meetings promptly. If a member is found standing around on their meeting period, shall be fined 50 cents on the first case, and on the second, he will be fined $1, which will go on your emergency fund. If member is working, his monthly dues must be paid, and if he has money in the bank, he must subscribe for as much as he is able to the Moorish Uplifting Fund, because it takes finance to uplift the nation. Act 3, it is the lawful and divine duty of every good member, if he is able in finance, to aid me in saving the nation. And if he does not, he is an enemy to the cause of uplifting his own people, and justice must catch you. Let it be he or she according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, as I have the power invested in my hands, and I will have to enforce the law in order to save the nation. Act 4, all members, while up making a public speech, must not use any assertion against the American flag or speak radical against the church or any member of any organized group, because we are to teach love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Act 5, all members must promptly attend their meetings and send their children to Sunday school, and the teacher must confirm himself to the questionnaire, and let every member exercise his 5 senses who is able to do so, because out from your Sunday school comes the guiders of the nation. Act 6, with us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7, all members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters, you must obey father and mother and be industrious and become part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his father, God Allah. Islam. All right. All meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Please rise for the closing prayer. You do not need to repeat after me. Allah, bind our hearts and minds back to our ancient forefathers, divine creed and principles. We ask this in our holy name and the 7 Elohim. Amen. Islam, Islam, Islamism. This meeting is now adjourned.
OSU. Say that so it won't go to collections, and I owe something from somewhere. I don't even know where it is. I don't.
Peace and love, Muslims.
Peace and love. Stay safe.
Islam.
Peace and love.